Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video I'm going to be showcasing a team that gave me extremely consistent results. I had 5 out of 5 positive sets today to climb back into the top 250 ranked battlers on the planet. And this team is built around a Pokemon that I was very critical of last season, and that is Jumpluff. In last season's meta, I thought Jumpluff was terrible. It was a grass type that ended up losing to Feraligatr and really didn't feel like it had a lot of play. But this season, with the rework to Acrobatics, Shadow double flying charge move Jumpluff suddenly feels way better than last season, and its energy feels hyper flexible. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches, and we're off to a good start in game number 1 as we lead Shadow Jumpluff into Malamar. Opponent safe switches into Credilli, and Credilli is a Pokemon that this team is a little bit soft to. So with this team, if you're going to play it, you are going to need to make some fancy plays to work around Credilli. Here my opponent is going to end up shielding the first, so I'm going to switch, catch, and sneak onto the Shadow Marowak. Shadow Marowak catching what is guaranteed to be a Rock Tomb, and now I can look to farm up and fire off this Bone Club. Bone Club at -1, not going to be particularly threatening, but this matchup is somehow not the worst matchup in the world for Shadow Marowak. I will decide to use the final shield and really put pressure on my opponent. If they want switch, they are going to have to give me their final shield. And if they do, then I am just going to Fairy Wind down with the Shadow Jumpluff. There's so few Pokemon in this meta that resist flying, which means that having a move as good as Acrobatics on a Shadow Pokemon, Jumpluff can go very far. I'm going to fire off the Acrobatics. It's a Swalot that enters the field that does a ton of damage. I switch out into the Lapras, and my opponent is going to respond with Malamar. Arguably there, I did make a misplay. I should have just stayed in and fired off the Acrobatics. I thought they were going to try and CMP tie with a Sludge, so that's why I went for the catch, but they did not end up going for it. Here, my opponent is going to CMP tie Superpower to the Sparkling Aria, and Sparkling Aria will be able to deliver a knockout onto the -1 defense Malamar. In comes Swalot. Swalot going to farm up to a Sludge plus an Ice Beam. Ice Beam is double super effective damage, but Shadow Jumpluff is monstrously bulky. In the moment, I thought this was KOing, but look at this. Jumpluff survives double super effective Ice Beam. Acrobatics knocks out the Swalot, and we take a win in game number 1. Moving into the next match, picking up a pretty solid lead, Shadow Jumpluff into Claydol. Opponent is going to save switch into Credilli, and this time I'm going to go for the catch right away. People with Credilli, they throw in very predictable timing. They like to throw as soon as they get it, so you can really punish people for playing in a rather predictable manner. In this particular instance, I don't really need switch advantage, as Lapras can do fine enough into Claydol, and of course, the Shadow Jumpluff is going to do quite well as well. Here, I am going to commit the shield as they go for the Grass Knot. I'm hoping that my opponent will elect to shield on the CMP tie, because if they do, I'm going to let it go and just Psywave down with Lapras. But they honestly make a pretty nice play, and that is, they actually decide to give up switch. So, I decide to give up switch as well, sending in the Jumpluff because it's just so hyper flexible. They bring in a Wigglytuff, and look at the devastation that Shadow Jumpluff is about to unleash here. I land the Acrobatics. I'm already at 2 Aerial Aces. Wigglytuff in absolute shambles. And if they double shield, they automatically lose the game because Lapras is just going to win the 1-0s versus Claydol. So I just always let it go. They end up swift baiting, but it's not going to matter. Lapras hits the field. Opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match. Shadow Jumpluff into Guzzlord, an unbelievably good lead. Opponent is not switching out, so it looks like they are core broken on the lead by the Jumpluff. I'm expecting they're just looking to sacrifice the Guzzlord, so I'm not going to bait. Acrobatics, that damage is always so satisfying when it lands. This legacy move hits so incredibly hard. They go for the Brutal Swing, and I get a nice Fairy Wind farm down. I'm expecting they're going to bring in a very hard counter to Jumpluff. It is going to be the Powder Snow, Alolan Sandslash, and I can bring in Lapras. Lapras has such a dominant matchup into Powder Snow, Alolan Sandslash. They try and catch a Sparkling Aria onto the Jumpluff, but here's where Ice Beam on Lapras is just going to completely run away with this game. I get to launch Ice Beam after Ice Beam at my poor opponent. They can fire off a move. I can tank an Acrobatics, no problem. Opponent, oh, they're actually on Energy Ball. I do not think Energy Ball is the play this season. Acrobatics is just such a nice move. Ice Beam, huge damage. In comes the Sandslash, and we take the win and the 2 shield flex as well. We move to the next game, and it's another pretty solid lead, Shadow Jumpluff into Claydol. Claydol, of course, does have access to double super effective Ice Beam. That does make the matchup a lot closer for the Claydol, but it's still not the worst thing in the world. So as long as you shield one, because they probably Rock Tomb first, then you're in an okay spot. Now, my opponent safe switched Drapion, so as long as you switch within 2 Fairy Winds, you will comfortably be able to win the zeros. In comes Claydol, and this is part of what makes Claydol scary. Unlike the alignment-dependent Mud Slappers like Gastrodon's energy does nothing to Jumpluff, but Claydol has double super effective Ice Beam damage. I have a tough call to make. Do they Rock Tomb? Do they Ice Beam? I shield. It's the Ice Beam, and in the back, my opponent has their own Shadow Jumpluff. They still have 2 shields to hide behind, so this feels like a very safe bait. The Aerial Ace bait, and now I can send in Lapras. Lapras can survive a Shadow Acrobatics. It does a lot of damage, but it is definitely survivable. I decided to shield the first because in my head I was thinking they're less likely to bait on the first one. Once they land the big move, then they have more incentive to go for the Aerial Ace. So I am able to successfully shield up an Acrobatics, and that really just simplifies the remainder of this game for me. My opponent will have to fire off energy here or switch. They end up switching into the Claydol, but I just have the perfect overfarm, so now they're just not in a winning position. I am now very close to the Ice Beam. I switch when I get the Ice Beam into the Jumpluff, catching the Aerial Ace, and that simplifies the game as well, because now my opponent has a choice. Do they want to get knocked out with an Acrobatics or an Ice Beam? They choose Acrobatics, so my Shadow Jumpluff will be able to KO theirs, and man, this Pokemon is just night and day from last season. Shadow Jumpluff into a Azumarill. Even without Energy Ball, you do fine into a Azumarill. Opponent safe switches in a Sableye, and this is a very odd play from my opponent. Sableye does not do well here. Foul play, not going to be particularly threatening whatsoever. My opponent, they're going to CMP tie, and I'm more than happy to let this go. Foul play, not going to do a ton, but they're actually on Power Gem. Oh no, that is terrible. Most Sableye now are on Dazzling Gleam. Because of the prevalence of Guzzlord, you really need Dazzling Gleam, but I just got rocked by a Power Gem and lost my entire Jumpluff. That's really not good. I'm basically just saying 2 Shield Lapras is going to win me this game. I know they have the Azumarill in the back. Oh, they have Diggersby, so this does help me out quite a bit. Opponent is going to make a nice catch here, catching a Sparkling Aria that was aimed at the Diggersby onto the Azumarill, but this is the move that I would need to throw anyway. I believe that my shields are best going to be spent on charge attacks from the Azumarill, so that's exactly what I'm going to do. I will end up committing the shield, and now I'm going to farm up just shy of 100 energy and bluff a potential Skull Bash. We'll have to see. Opponent does end up respecting it. That's very good news for me. They made a pretty nice play earlier, knocking me out with the Power Gem, so I'm going to return the favor with a devastating catch onto the Marowak, and with that catch, I should now be in a winning position. Sparkling Aria is going to connect, opponent farming up a ton of energy, and there is Diggersby re-entering the field. Immediately met with a Sparkling Aria. That is huge damage, opponent firing off their energy, and I will let this through. They end up baiting with a Fire Punch, and I will now fire off this Sparkling Aria. This is super effective damage onto the Diggersby. It picks up the KO, and despite the Power Gem surprise, we are going to hang on here. So we get the Sparkling Aria, KO the Azumarill. That game was a roller coaster, but it does end in a win. We've got the battle of content creators going up against Chillis FM. He actually is the non-Shadow Jumpluff, and honestly, I don't know this matchup too well as the Shadow versus the non-Shadow, as the only Jumpluffs I've really played against have been the Shadow. I'm just going to go straight for the Acrobatics right off the bat. He's going to shield. The fact that he waits a turn makes me think it's more likely he's going for the nuke move here, so I will commit the shield. And now I am going to be unleashing Acrobatics number 2. That appears to be a CMP tie. Acrobatics is going to connect, and that is massive damage onto my opponent. I'm going to be committing the shield back as he goes for the Acrobatics, and I decide I'm just going to fire off the Aerial Ace to force the final shield. If he lets it go, obviously it's just going to KO. If he shields, then I can potentially look to switch. In comes Blastoise. Blastoise's energy is going to be uncomfortable. I'm going to farm up, bluffing a potential Acrobatics. The Aerial Ace is shielded, and now I'm going to switch and make a catch onto Lapras. Unfortunately, Lapras is still going to take a lot of damage from Skull Bash. I am going to farm up quite a bit with the Lapras, and I mistime my attack. That is so costly, as now I just give my opponent an entire free rollout. Blastoise is farming up so much energy, I take the opportunity just to fire off another Sparkling Aria. This Sparkling Aria is going to get them very low. Out comes a Shadow Quagsire, and Shadow Quagsire will instantly be met with the Sparkling Aria. I will have an ability to make a potential catch here. This is a very tough call to make. Will they throw instantly? Will they overfarm? Aqua Tail is going to land, and they just end up throwing instantly. This does mean that, unfortunately, they are probably going to make an Aqua Tail versus the Jumpluff. I send in the Jumpluff, and this is one of my first times really playing Jumpluff in quite some time, so I didn't remember if it won CMP over Blastoise. I thought it did. It turns out it's nowhere close. Blastoise wins CMP there by quite a significant amount, so unfortunately we do lose the game, but I got good info out of that, and that is that you do not want to rely on Jumpluff to win CMP ties. Jumpluff into Guzzlord. There's a safe switch into a Pokemon I haven't seen in quite a while, Starmie. Starmie was the Water Psywave user of choice until Lapras got buffed, and unfortunately Lapras a bit pushed it out of the meta. But this is very comfortable to stay in here with the Jumpluff. I'm going to be shielding up, and now I will go for another Aerial Ace bait. Always farming up to the Acrobatics, because Shadow Acrobatics is so threatening that even if you do end up baiting, you can grab a lot of shields off of opponents. So I will commit the shield. There's going to be the Power Gem. I probably could have overfarmed more, but I'm a little rusty on Starmie counts, so I figured I may as well just guarantee the KO. And the moment they send a Poison, I just pivot into Lapras. The exact same thing I'd do if it was a Clodsire lead. I just pivot out into Lapras, and eventually they are going to switch out. They're going to save the Clodsire, and the moment they do, when they bring in Guzzlord, this is very fine. I need 2 charge stacks to KO, so I will go for the Sparkling Aria first. Because I'm not the Shadow, the Ice Beam is not enough to land an Ice Beam and farm down, but a Sparkling Aria plus an Ice Beam will be enough to pick up the KO. In comes Clodsire. Clodsire going for the Sludge Bomb right before I get the move, but we're going to put the final nail in the coffin. The double resistant catch onto the Marowak. Opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match. Shadow Jumpluff into Talonflame. This is probably the most difficult lead for this team to see. I save switch into Lapras, and out comes Morpeko. Now this, I believe, is probably superior in the back. It's a very odd team that doesn't have a ton of synergy in my view, but it's a team that unfortunately is here and perfectly hard counters this team. If I'm going to win this game, I'm going to need to A, get both my opponent's shields, and B, I'm going to need Shadow Jumpluff's energy to take home this win for me. So I will actually have to let the Lapras go here. So Lapras, oh, I actually no shield to Psychic Fangs. That works out pretty nicely for me. My opponent is forced to fire off another move. I could have potentially fought for switch, but even switch advantage doesn't help me a lot because Talonflame can just Brave Bird the Marowak and then I'm still in trouble. So I'm just going to bring in the Marowak and I'm just going to completely throw it away. I'm saying, you know what, Marowak, I don't think you're winning me this game. I'm putting it all up to Jumpluff. I need Jumpluff to beat a Talonflame and a Superior. The biggest issue for me is that the Talonflame already had 1 residual Incinerate. If it didn't, I could probably actually win this game, and if they didn't have Flame Charge, I would have been in a better spot as well. But now they're boosting up their Incinerate damage. That does huge damage to the Acrobatics landing, but unfortunately, those 2 boosted Incinerates leave me in Aerial Ace range. It is the team that I expected, but I just don't have the health, and I'm just short of the Acrobatics. I feel like I made it as close as I reasonably could for being triple hard countered, but man, that's a really awkward team. Hopping to the final match, and this is not a Pokemon I was expecting to see, Shadow Magnezone. This team is very, very weak to Shadow Magnezone. I'm going to have to get fancy if I want to win this game. Magnezones love to farm up to 2, so I'm going to switch, mid-volt switch. They overtap, and I get the snipe down, and that is incredibly important. I deny so much energy, and now I have pretty bad alignment here with the Shadow Marowak on the Shadow Jumpluff. But getting rid of that Magnezone, Marowak definitely did its job. Acrobatics lands. I cannot get to a Rock Slide the Fairy Winds would KO, so I'm going to settle for the triple resisted Bone Club just to get a little bit of chip damage. And now I'm going to be bringing in Lapras. Lapras going to be met with a Shadow Sableye. Shadow Sableye, I know that I will be able to survive a foul play pretty comfortably, so I basically just want my opponent to fire off some energy. I'm always going to be letting this go. I can fire off the Sparkling Aria, and then once I land a Sparkling Aria, then I can look to switch into the Jumpluff. So I no shield a foul play, I fire off this Sparkling Aria, and now in comes Jumpluff. Foul Play does a lot here, so I will respect it. Oh, it's another Power Gem. I guess there are slightly more Power Gem Sableyes than I expected. So very happy to shield that. Aerial Ace is going to grab the shield from the opponent. It's a CMP tie, and I always just have to let this go. It is only going to be an Aerial Ace bait, and now my opponent overfarms, but they play to a CMP tie that they do not win. I try and go for an undercharge there to leave them on 1 HP, but I don't get enough of an undercharge. Psy-waving down a dark type is a bit of a tall task, but I will make the Sparkling Aria. My opponent is only on 9 Shadow Claws of energy, which means even if it wasn't the CMP tie, they do not have the back-to-back moves loaded. But Sparkling Aria will KO the very low health Sableye. That was a terrifying lead, but we got a little creative and we were able to snipe down the Magnezone, and that allowed us even an ability to have a chance to fight back in that game. All in all, this team ended up working out really, really nicely for me. Initially, I tried it with Walrein instead of Lapras, and I had honestly pretty middling results, like a lot of 2-3, 3-2s, wasn't really gaining much traction. And then I sat down and thought to myself, why am I using a worse Ice Water type when we have a really good Ice Water type? So I ended up putting Lapras on the team, and Lapras just felt way better. Its ability to Psy-wave through things is really, really nice. It has a ton of fast move pressure. And with Ice Beam, if you save switch Lapras and get counter swapped by a grass like Credilli or Superior, you have the ability to hit them back for super effective damage. Lapras has a ton of bulk, Ice Beam does a lot of damage. One weak point of the line is a lack of a serious Credilli answer. You can run this weak to Credilli, but you're really going to have to rely on outplaying opponents like I was doing, like catching Rock Tombs on Demarowak and stuff like that. I think it is definitely, you can still win having no answer to Credilli, but it is just going to require a lot of nuance and teamwork and understanding. When do I end up shielding to try and get my opponent's Credilli lower versus when do I let it go and just try and go for farm? Because I think with this new Aerial Ace Acrobatics moveset, Shadow Jumpluff, it's just so flexible, even against the poisons. Something like a Swalot, we saw a couple Fairy Winds and 2 Acrobatics was very close to KOing, which is crazy for how bulky Swalot is. So I really do believe it's now way better than it ever has been. Thank goodness we finally got rid of Energy Ball. Jumpluff was always a terrible grass type, and now it can completely forget about the fact that it's a grass type and do what it does best, which is be a really, really good flying type. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our channel members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is genuinely so appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.